got a package. So I spent the last 2 days working on the front brakes on my VFR project. I was pumped to get some hose clamps in the mail and finally sort out my hose clamp issue with the brake reservoir. Because I had made several orders of hose clamps and none of them were the right size. I've ordered hose clamps like 4 times trying to get the right size. While I was waiting for the hose clamps, I had already made some brake lines, some custom-made, homemade brake lines. And so as soon as I got the hose clamps on there, I was ready to start adding fluid and bleeding these brakes. We should be heading towards getting this whole system working now. So we're going to do hydraulic brake fluid next. Start bleeding this thing out. Making sure this guy's topped off. But then this turned into a thing as well as I started chasing my tail trying to repair the brake lines because they started leaking. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to have to take this line off and sort of redo this fitting up here. I'm trying to continue on here and see if anything else fails. I'm trying to build up as much pressure as I can in this system to see if we can track down all the failure points. And it turned into this cyclical story of me fixing a brake line, putting it back on, adding fluid, bleeding the brakes, finding another leak, fixing another brake line, and repeat. Now that the system is pressurized, I'm getting a little bit of fluid weeping out of this guy here on this end. So I'm going to need to redo this hose as well. This thing will work. Until finally I ran out of parts again. Because what I'm using for the brake lines are AN fittings, and these are ones that meet up with PTFE tubing. What I think I've learned is that I had tried to reuse these little ferrules. They're also called olives. I've learned that as well. And I think that's what was giving me problems. These started leaking. And I had just the tiniest of leaks where I got the system almost fully pressurized, where I was and I was squeezing the brake lever and it would slowly sink down and I would just be able to see hydraulic fluid just leaking up through the braided line here. So I just took this one off the bike and it was just this end that was leaking. The one with the stainless sort of a banjo bolt on the end. This end did not leak. It was fine. But the thing is, I found in replacing some of the other ones is that these things are on here real good. And so in order to get them off, I kind of have to ruin the actual braided line. So I'm going to have to replace this whole thing, both ends, most likely. Yeah, this part here is just really hard to get off. The little PTFE tube on the inside is really well seated. It's got to be just the fact that I reused it once. But yeah, you can see the ferrule. I mean, it's not the worst shape to me. It's got some scratches on the outside from the braided line, but it's still like holding its shape really well. I've got new ferrules to put on there. This is our line. I need to cut out some new line. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to be a little bit bolder now with my cutting. So before I was cutting about that much. About 4/10 of an inch. And that is, for reference, less than the size of this guy here. So there was no way I could get that down very far. I'd like to What I want to be able to do, what I think will make for a better end product, is if I can get this thing down so that the hose sticks out the end of it just a little bit. That means I need it to be just a little bit bigger than this guy. So that is about 6/10 of an inch. I'm gonna give it 7/10. All right, so there we go. We got a nice, this is a huge chunk compared to what I was working with. And want to make sure my little end, the PTFE tube on the inside is nice and round looking. And I'm going to go ahead. Look at that, it sticks. Look how far that sticks out. Oh man. Now, I should, though, very easily be able to spread out this braided line a little bit, make sure I'm not getting any of that braided line inside my ferrule. That's a possible reason things would leak. And I'm going to go ahead and get my ferrule on here. Oh my God, that's so much easier. And get my table and help jam that ferrule down on there. Take a good look at it, make sure it is like super seated in there all the way to the end of that ferrule, because it does bottom out on the ferrule. There's like a little part on the end where it's bigger, and so that bottoms out on there. All right, so that is all set. That should be perfect. Then we'll get this guy, and I've been told also that I could put a little bit of oil on here. Just sprayed some WD-40 on there, get it on the threads and everything. And then we jam this guy in to the inside of that PTFE tubing. And now we can bring this guy down, start threading this stuff together. All right, in theory, that is as good as it can get. I did everything correct there. All right, and then I am gonna wanna cut out, have a piece of this stuff. Let's see if I can thread this on now. All right, so I'm gonna leave this off and I'll heat shrink it on the bike. That's basically where I'm at, just because I wanna make sure I can visually see this and make sure it's not leaking. All right, next I'm gonna do the same thing for this end, where I make this just 1/10 longer than my actual nut here on my fitting. Put a little bit of light oil, as I say, on everything, and then this guy goes down inside here. Bam. And then this guy has to come back up over. Start threading on there. Then I'm going to put it in the vise from here. In theory, we've got a functional connection here. I'm going to try it on the bike now, and I will let you know if it leaks or not, because this takes a while to get all the brakes bled and everything, so we'll see you. All right, I hesitate to say this, but I think we got it. I redid each of these brake lines up here at least once, if not twice per brake line. So I finally got them seated. I have no leaks at this point. I've got good brake pedal feel or brake lever feel. Everything seems really good. I've been looking for seepage and everything on and I'm just applying pressure and trying to make it leak out. And I don't see any leaks. I've been doing this for like 30 minutes and I get nothing. So I feel like I finally figured out how to do this. I finally learned how to do this, and I think we're good. I gotta let this sink in because it was such a struggle to get it done. I'm not sure that it's real. I won't believe that it's real until I have thoroughly tested this and the time has elapsed to allow me to continue to believe that it actually is holding, that I actually did a good job here. So we'll see.